Let's begin the discussion. We don't have a whole lot of people in the audience, so we can move quickly. We were going to discuss laziness. And let's just discuss your ideas about the laziness, how it stays in the way to many things. So laziness is a way to defend yourself. So why do you think it's important? Well, it's a way to defend yourself. But we still have to work and live with this. So children are lazy and you're lazy. And teachers. And also it's contagious. Yeah, but so what? So laziness stays in the way of the progress. So did you just ask a question? No. He's not using the mic. So it's good because it allows to delegate. It's bad. Why? And so what? So laziness also stays in the way to health. Well, let's be specific. I don't want to discuss some abstract concepts.
Translation.
So somebody needs translation.
I suppose he is.
So the translation is available.
Okay. Да, что там?
In other words, if you have the will, then everything is going to be fine. But how do you activate the will and the motivation? Well, yeah, we thought you could tell us. So laziness equals tiredness. We are making a mistake, because I'm asking you how come this laziness stays in the way, and you are trying to explain me what laziness is. And you're not talking about the phenomena per se, but about the reasons of that. And that's why things are not looking good. Can you please be more specific? So let's put this on hold. Now, what do we call laziness? What's that? It's lack of desire to do something. It's also lack of desire to do something you don't like. It's lack of desire to do anything at all. This is when you want to, but you just decide not to. So laziness. Do nothing. Right? Can you see well? Or just I have to do something, but I decide not to. Or I do not do what I want to do. So I guess it's somewhere here. Do nothing, don't do something I have to do. Procrastination. Where does this go? In here. Well, even if you're addicted to computer games, you're doing something. Laziness means doing nothing. Well, what about procrastination? If I'm supposed to get ready for my exam and I decided to just clean up in the apartment, so procrastination is okay. So you think that laziness means this, right? And this is not laziness. I just don't know. We have to discuss the terms. And this is what I suggest. Here is the picture. These are the symptoms, right? Which belong to certain categories. They're different, and we try to do something about it. But we somehow cope with all this just by sheer exertion of will. So in this case, we have all kinds of reasons to all this, and then, depending on the situation, it can be manifested through the symptoms. So I view this as a comprehensive, solid set of complexes. Now, what is the norm? When we are not discussing the symptoms and the laziness, what's the norm? When there is nothing here, what happens? How does this happen at all? If you want to do something, you do it, right? So there is category 1, I want. And then there is another category, must. Okay, so let's do it this way. Then we have the category which is called I must do this, and then I do this. So how these categories are linked? And then there is I can. Yeah, I want, I do, I can. What about other things? Well, I have to, but I don't want to. One student mentioned something very interesting.
I'm not able to can.
I think that is a perfect example that belongs here. So from I want to I act. What happens? We develop a plan, right? And we put forward an objective. So we have an objective and we have a plan how to attain this objective, which translates into action. Now, where do we get this want thing? We have the category which is called needs. Now, how are those dreams match the needs and the want category? Look, it's very important. So we have this thing here. If we would use logic, we would spend a lot of time to develop it, but we don't know our needs. We don't know the needs. A priori, we have no clue, because our needs are somewhere else. The ability to rationalize belongs to a completely different category. So we look at all this, and then when a little boy, a little girl, a baby is born, they just don't know what's wrong at this specific moment. They just don't feel well. And they don't know whether they shot themselves or they're hungry. So, and there is only one way they can give us a signal about this. They cry. Sometimes he gets a titty and he comes down. Sometimes he gets a titty and he cannot come down. So that means that you have to give another signal. And then at 3 months old, they are giving different signals depending on the needs. So by default, we just don't know what we want at this level. I am a perfectionist. Yes, you are. Well, since we don't know the needs, this line between the needs to I want is a problem. So we have some kind of interpretation going on here. However, in fact, it's based on the previous experience. If, as a result of some situations, this child has this desire, and sometimes this desire has nothing to do with the need, so it can be satisfied through some perverted way, but generally this person will have a conviction that if I have this problem, I want this. Then there is another important aspect. If my need is not properly satisfied, then I end up in the state of anxiety. And it is fed through this neuromediator, glutamate, which is added as taste enhancer to some of the foods. So we are living through this anxiety where we want something but we don't know what. And we keep running and trying to develop this idea what exactly we want. If somebody intervenes, if you have something like this and they give you a pie, even if your need is not satisfied, then at least some kind of need is satisfied. Then you have the dopamine and serotonin, and you kind of feel like you're satisfied, but still the need is there, the anxiety is there, but you don't realize it anymore. Or mom says, I'm cold, but mom says, no, you're just hungry. That happens, and that's why you have this intervention with your understanding of your own need and how it's connected with your desire. Because the desire is already a result of interpretation. The need is your instinct, which you don't understand. So look, this is where we have this huge area for possible breakdowns. If a breakdown happens, we can see laziness. If the need doesn't match my desire, then we have the laziness, and then there is some reflection. We try to analyze, we try to see whether I really want this. If subconsciousness can analyze it, it can find a mistake. If I really believe that I want this, but my subconscious does not believe in this, then of course nothing good will come out of it. Here, the problem is very similar. We can use I want, and we don't know how the entire universe looks like. We have only some experience. So I know that this can be attained through this specific method. And if our plans are not adequate, then there could be a problem again. And then there is another thing which we forgot to mention. It's the result. Why it's not next to the objective? Well, because the objective is there, but the universe is not opening up opportunities for us. But then we can change things, and in fact we're kind of moving this way, but in fact we go this way, and we get a result. And then here we also need this very place where we have to show persistence. It's a great word. And then we have to have flexibility. Why we need that?
Да, чтобы обходить камни, я
to
абсолютно
be able
согласен.
to bypass
Если будут проблемы с
some tight places. But if there is no flexibility, or when there is flexibility, laziness is going to be problematic. Why so?
Я бы сказал, что это все еще настойчивость.
Well, it's because of persistence.
Мгм. А удовлетворен ли я?
Am I satisfied?
Вот я бы предположил, что
Now, I would suggest that flexibility means that here we could have made a mistake, and here as well. And we put forward an objective which categorically might not match our needs. Flexibility means that on the way or en route to your objective, here and here, you should reflect and understand whether you are still moving towards satisfying the need or you're just carrying that suitcase without a handle. So if you are persistent but not flexible enough, you could probably already have forgotten about why you do this. You only have the objective and you will not attain it because it doesn't match my needs anymore. But somehow I am persistent and I try to attain it no matter what. But my subconscious says no. It makes no sense because it's not in line with your needs anymore. So here we have another question. So must. That's about dad and mom, right? So my needs are not present here at all. Can we have a situation whereby I believe that I have to do something or I must do something and there is no need on my part in this case behind it? Well, there is a need. For every must or want, there is a need. So this must emerges in two ways. One we already mentioned. So these shifted motives. A shifted motive. What's that? I give you a specific example. So we have a whole course for our students, and we begin that course by offering them a survey. What exactly do I like to do? What do I want to attain? What I have to do and what exactly I do. In fact, 4 columns. Very easy to fill out, but it gives you some interesting results. So in fact, I do nothing of the previous steps. Or in fact, I'm only doing what I have to do. And then I suggest to pick from wants and musts those things that they just don't have time or opportunity to do. So this girl tells me I have to learn English, but I cannot make myself. And I'm asking her, why do you have to? And now we begin the reflection. Why do you have to? Because I want to go to LA and receive training there. Why do you need to receive training in LA? Because I want to be an actress. Why not in Ukraine? Because I cannot become a good actress. I want to be an actress in Hollywood. Why do I have to be an actress in Hollywood? I don't know. And this is where we have a problem, and I'm trying to dig in. What's gonna happen when you become a Hollywood actress? I'm gonna walk the streets and people will recognize me. Why do you want to be recognized? People will love me, and then she just starts crying. So the need was love. And now love, how come it's connected to the knowledge of English? Really not connected. So you have the shift in the motives. So and you will be criticizing yourself, and you will be causing pain for yourself. And somehow she just cannot realize this herself. And she's not removing this objective because, it's all connected to pain and it's not very obvious. But on the other hand, she cannot stop not doing it.
удовлетворению потребностей.
because it has nothing to do with satisfaction of the need. As far as I know, she kept crying, then she went to a therapist, and then they discussed the relationships with mom, and she just decided not to go there because she decided that she didn't need it. It's not about her. And that's just one of the cases about shifted motives, but it's just not the only situation. There are many more. And allow me to draw something else over here. What do we do? So this item 1. I want. If you want, do it. Why we are not discussing laziness with kids? Why we have to show them this chart? Because it makes sense to discuss laziness and the ways to overcome it in specific examples where it's manifested. So if you cannot make it, take a rest. One of the most important aspects is the availability of resource. So we might say that this child is doing nothing, or we might say we do nothing ourselves, nothing valuable is happening, but if we cannot start doing something, take a rest, and then things start changing for the better. So you took a rest, and then this is the time when you have to look at the motives and the ability. So look for the true need. That's what you have to do. This is about those shifted motives. But this must might have a different reason. Sometimes you don't feel enough love from your parents. Sometimes you feel like you will be punished by your parents, and this is about your safety. These are all shifted motives, but they are not alike. Not all of them alike. So you can understand that this is my objective, it matches my desire, and it matches my need. But somehow I still cannot start doing this. The resource is there, you rested. There could be other resources. Now let's talk about must. We're not saying I must have sex, right? Well, sometimes, I guess. Well, why we keep saying it? Why we say this? Well, it's like, I guess I must because of health reasons. Well, this must comes from where, in this case? I don't understand what you're saying. So why I'm saying, why I cannot say want, why I have to say must? Well, if you are drafted to the military, then yes, somebody drafts you there, and you must go. Now, if we are talking about these things, as I mentioned previously, what is that about? So this is when you really, really need. Like I can say, I want sex so much. And I'm not saying, not in every situation, that I want to wash dishes. However, I live by myself, and my wife is not nagging or anybody else about me not washing the dishes. So if this is social pressure, then this is a shifted motive. I want to be accepted by the society, hence I believe that I have to do something. So washing dishes is a very simple example. If you live by yourself, or there are a couple of persons living together, but nobody is complaining about dishes, why do we have to say, I must? Then why cannot we say, I want? Well, the need can be mine 100%. And naturally, if the process is not pleasant, then of course I might
Да, то есть я здесь пишу.
not want to do this. So it's an unpleasant process.
Ну, видимо, да, у кого-то и с сексом так.
I guess some people experience this with sex.
Да. Фрейд в полном виде.
This is where Freud manifests himself fully.
Неприятный процесс.
So unpleasant process.
Что с этим делать?
What do we do about all this?
Получается так. Если нам лень и не хватает ресурсов,
So if we are lazy, if we don't have resources, what do we do?
это смещенные мотивы,
If we are lazy and the motives are shifted, then I guess we should just stop it.
Сейчас, подождите, вот давайте.
Wait a second. Let's just do it slowly. If my motives are shifted, so I guess I have to study so that my mom doesn't scold me, but in fact it looks like I don't have to study. I just have to build relationships with my parents, or I just have to suffer. We have a group of children between 12 and 13 and we discuss parents a lot. And this is really a sad age for them, because at 15 you can run away from home, you can do all kinds of crazy things which allow you to escape control. But at 13 they say, what do I do about this? And the only thing I can tell them is keep suffering. When you are 13, that's it. You're wise enough to understand that something's wrong, but you're not strong enough to fight back. So 13-year-olds are suffering. When you're 16, you're fighting back and you do nothing. So you are excluding the must completely. But what if this process is unpleasant? What do you do? And raise your hands so that I could just direct your questions. So can we find pleasure in all of the processes? It's a kind of good way, but can I find pleasure in washing dishes? How do I do this? Is it gonna be always like this? Or in some cases you will be pretty much raping yourself in the brain. So it probably works with dishes, but there are other unpleasant things. And you just cannot persuade yourself that they are pleasant, because they are not. What do you do? So we have one option. You can make this business more pleasant, or you delegate. But there is an important factor that you have to insert in here. Bonuses? Well, you are trying to create a shifted motive, but just you use a different method. It's very important. In principle, when you start using the shifted motives, you are getting used to this perverted reality. There is no reinforcement in real life in this case, but you create it for yourself. And this is a good way of training somebody, but from the standpoint of a child, you cannot play with him like this, because then his reality will be distorted. And then it can be translated into paternalism, where I just have no clue. Mom, Dad, tell me what to do. And if I fail, it's your fault. If you want this child to grow up as a mature person, then this carrot and a stick story is not gonna work. You have to just throw it away. It's not gonna happen. So if you must do something, if you must implement some kind of unpleasant process, well, we already discussed it. You can improve the process, you can make it better, but there is an important aspect to this. Why? When we have must, when we have unpleasant process, why it's so difficult to start it for us? Well, because of the motivation. Well, there is a need to do this. And the key problem here is the idea where you stop realizing that this action is based on your needs. And your brain doesn't want to give resources for this. So both things or belong to must, but it just doesn't work like this. And, there is no shifted motive, and my task is to pretty much internalize it. In principle, this is about laziness. So, if mom makes me wash dishes, then the need is different. If mom makes me wash dishes and I want to be good with my mom, I'll be shifting my motives. If my mom leaves for 2 weeks, what kind of must I am following? Because I want to eat and use clean dishes for my food. So, and I have options here. This means that I don't have to wash all the dishes. I can only use one plate, one fork, and probably a skillet. Everything else will be sitting on the shelves. Even if I have a need, I'm gonna tell myself I want to use clean dishes and I want to come into clean kitchen and eat using clean dishes. But if I realize this need like this, then I can understand that I don't have to clean the whole kitchen. Because, if I internalize it, the concept changes, but this does not negate the idea that this unpleasant action will stop being unpleasant. But they just have options opening up, because I start understanding what exactly I want, and this helps us change. So in this case, I have to, I want to use a clean plate, and I just can buy it and not wash dishes. So transformation oftentimes means an attempt to cheat on yourself, but there is no cheating. There is a need in here. There is no cheating. It's important. I understand clearly what do I need in terms of my needs again. So I'm coming back over here. So item 3, the true desire or the need. After we have done all this, you take a rest, definitely. It's a very complicated process. So you're taking a rest, and you do it as much as possible. In the context of the conference, I cannot discuss burnout and rest, but it's also important. Next, I put all of this into one group. Find other blocks. So even if you cannot start doing this after all these actions, there are other blocks that prevent you from doing so. So what kind of blocks can be out there? I'm going to give you an example, and this is one of my favorite blocks. Two girls in one group. Both of them have problems learning English, and they all want to go to San Francisco or LA, I can't remember, but they all want to go to one city. So the second girl has a problem with English, and I'm saying why, and I want to study it, I want to go there, the schools there are much better. What are you going to study? And she says, I want to be able to write screenplays. Now I'm saying, well, it's not really a problem, and she writes good texts. And that's pretty much her life calling, as I can tell. So why it's not working? So we start looking at problems, and then I'm saying, what if you are successful? And she's already crying. Why you're crying? Because I will go there and there are no parents. Far away from parents is very scary. And that's it. So, the story is a bit different. In this case, we had fear as a block. And there are all kinds of fears. Sometimes you have a fear of failure. That's why people get paralyzed, because they want to make things as much as possible and as better as possible. They want to be ideal, but there is no way you can be ideal, and that's the fear that we face, and that she fears that it will work out. And if it works out, there will be something that she cannot cope with. So she's displacing the fear. And she still is committed to her objective. But she doesn't understand what's happening deep in her mind. And since she doesn't understand this, her subconscious is blocking her somehow by using some kind of tools. As soon as she touches the fear, few weeks later, she learned the language. She started learning language. Then, she went there and she's now studying. So we now understand what we fear, and when we understand it, we can fight it. So then there is another important idea about fear. It's called I want to, but I'm afraid. I want to, but I am afraid. What kind of concept that is? So, behind any desire that you cannot satisfy, there is fear. And behind every fear, there is a desire. I will give you a good example. I had this period in my life when I suddenly started fearing hitting a pedestrian. I understand that I generally don't want to hit anybody, but I was just looking everywhere and kind of overreacting. I had this fear that I'm going to hit a pedestrian, and then I decided to work with that fear. I started digging in. And what's going to happen if I hit a pedestrian? So I guess they will put me in jail. Why I want to go to jail? Because people will stop bothering me. I just couldn't say no to some people in my life. So my subconscious was thinking about ways to automatically stop communicating with those people. But this is really a bad way of doing it. So my other part was fearing this. So hence I had this kind of fear. But then I understood how I can say no to those people, and I'm no longer panicking. So you can play with this fear, you can play with the laziness by just using this approach. How much time do I have? 10 minutes. So generally there could be a lot of blocks, and any kind of work becomes individual. So if I realize that this is my need, there are no shifted motives, but there are problems in terms of attaining the objective, then you have to analyze things personally and individually. Sometimes it's perfectionism, sometimes it's fears. So it belongs, I guess, to fears as well. So other blocks are many. And of course, I'm not going to go deep into details. I'm just going to mention some of the most important ideas. A very simple idea that your surroundings have a huge impact. And they have an impact in many ways. So if nobody does anything, then I stop doing anything as well. This is where you lose values. There is this interesting picture with a cobra who can kill 90% of victims just by one bite. The question is, why not 100? So see, we have this devaluation process, and the whole system falls and crumbles. So we have to have resource for everything to work. So any person has a basic need in movement or motion. So for us, in principle, this is normal, to want nothing and to do nothing. So what happens in this situation where I do nothing and when I want nothing? Where there could be this burnout, fatigue. What else?
Давайте так, те, которые уже обсудили, не надо, да? То есть,
Those which we discussed, don't mention them again. But let's talk about other reasons why you want nothing.
ну, получается, что у нас есть как минимум одна мотивация.
So at least we have one motivation to just go somewhere. Because it's boring to do nothing. But this motivation breaks down somehow.
Вот это невозможно полностью удовлетворить. Базовая
You cannot really satisfy this basic need. We have something up our asses, really, that makes us move.
вариант. Нас с детства научили себя
So they train us
ну, мы просто на самом деле учимся хотеть
from childhood
возраста, когда начинаем,
to subdue
когда ребенок
our desires. When somebody's crawling, when a baby's crawling, why the baby's crawling? Because he has something interesting in front of him, and he understands that he can come to it, and he is learning to want and to attain and to reach that objective. In the process of training, we develop this link between want and need. If you subdue this, then or intervene, then problems will occur. There could be one option when you just satisfy all the needs of that baby. I see that he is crawling to the bag, so I pick him up and bring him to the bags. Then, the boy says, I want this, here you go, here you have it. Then there is another option. He wants something, and I'm giving him something else as a substitution. So that is a problem with early childhood development, because instead of spending time in boredom and anxiety because of the glutamate, he's busy all the time. So he just does not have a context to hear his own needs, because he's busy, he's overloaded with this and this assignment, so he cannot hear what exactly he wants. And then when he grows up and becomes a teenager, he has a lot of unsatisfied needs. Hence, doing something that they require from him, he no longer can, because it's painful, but he doesn't understand where the pain comes from. Hence the apathy. And when we allow everything, and when we offer something else to substitute, in both cases we will have apathy. We will have a person who wants nothing. One of the most important reasons for laziness is another important need. So we have the need, we have the desire. When everything, there is a match, there is a resource. I know everything I need to know. So, because before we had this problem with lack of knowledge and I had fears, but I have everything, I have the knowledge, but I'm still not doing it. One of the reasons could be I have another need, which I am displacing, or I just cannot satisfy. And if it's displaced, then it will take all the resources with it. So we have a very good example here. When there is this important question of relationships between boys and girls for teenagers, and sometimes, they're overwhelmed, and if they cannot realize themselves in these relationships, they will have the apathy all the time, because they believe that this is paramount. And then there is another important case which is manifested here. It's the need to have freedom. If there is permanent control, they just, have to fight it all the time. And until they satisfy the need for freedom, they cannot do anything else. I would suggest that in some cases, or in many cases, this need has to be realized, and you have to allow it for you. If you have a need in freedom, then you might not allow it for yourself because there is control. So this child might say, well, the parents are not wrong in this case. They will have to again subdue this need, and in many cases, without the satisfaction of the need, nothing will happen. That's how it
У
goes.
нас есть пару минут на вопрос?
Do we have a couple of times for Q&A?
Вопросы есть?
Any questions at all?
Или в принципе, да. Вот не знаю. То есть у меня какой-то
I don't know.
или статьи
I don't have a book, I don't have an article where you can read about this because these are bits and pieces of different kinds of research.
О, супер, спасибо за вопрос.
Thank you for your question. So, if something is wrong with a child, then you have to leave him alone for some time without any intervention from the parents, and then he will have rest, and then he will have this search and anxiety function. If you will give him a year or two for these processes, that would be just great. In most of the cases, you cannot afford this. Well, if it doesn't happen, if change doesn't happen in 2 years, then you have to ask advice from an expert because, parents are interested in this child. Hence, they cannot help him. They will help, causing problems. But the psychotherapist has to help in this case.
Ну как, я бы сказал, что в основном эта вся система работает в любом
So the system works
подросток способен это
at any age, but teenager can realize this
это тоже одна из
and reflect on this.
что главная проблема неокрепшей детской психики это неокрепшая
So weak
то есть до тех пор, пока мы с собой
mental state
ребенку помочь не можем. Если я с собой в этом плюс-минус разобрался, то я могу очень
can
деликатно где-то его поддержать.
pretty much spill over to the older age. And, the parents in this case, they just have to leave this child alone for some time.
В смысле? Чем мне нравится заниматься как процессом? Чего я
So,
достичь?
what
Что я должен делать, чем я занимаюсь?
do I have to do?
Вот.
What do I do in fact? And what do I want to attain? Those are the things that I mentioned previously. Thank you.